If we're showing up on Facebook or YouTube, that would be great. There we go. Okay. All right. Oh wow, and we got um, Pirate Pedraza here with his eye patch.
Yes.
Fair enough. Okay, well, welcome to the to the November, or some would say, John Mark would say the October meeting, take two. Um, So we fortunately didn't have a quorum last month, so we're got some holdover material from last month to finish up. Um, wanted to point out that um, Brian, you're here. I was checking to make sure you were going to show. Eric indicated he will not be able to join tonight, so we will not have treasurer's report tonight. We do need to get a treasurer's report. We haven't had one for a couple of months, so I'm going to get on him to get one for us. I wasn't aware that he wasn't going to be able to join tonight. Anyway, um, so I think with that, Brian, maybe you could go ahead and um, give us, I think, the September minutes. Is that right?
Um, I would if I could. I screwed up, and I don't know what I did. My best guess is that when I went to go create a note for last month's meeting, I
Hmm.
think I I think when I hit save, I didn't change the name, and I saved over it because I can't find the file,
Okay.
and I don't have my information. So I
So you're
first time I've
gonna.
done that. I can't find anything. All I can find is my note for last month. We didn't have a quorum, and then um, the month prior to that, and I don't see anything for that one. And my best guess is that I saved over it in the same folder because I take the last month's and then I open it up, delete everything, rename everything, and then save it as a new file, and then start type in my notes that I wrote down.
Okay.
And that's best. So I apologize for that. I was like, that's why I was a little bit late because I was like scrambling trying to see where it was and seeing if maybe I might have accidentally saved it someplace else, and I don't see any reference to it on my computer. So
Okay.
um,
So you're gonna
another
you're gonna
reason,
you're gonna go
another
back
reason.
and watch the video again and make it up again. Is that what you're planning, or?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
I have my handwritten notes too, but usually sometimes if I have the time, I'll have it playing as I'm typing and just kind of listen to it because there's sometimes I'll put little asterisks next to things as I'm making my handwritten notes to go back and watch the video because the discussion's going so fast I can't quite keep up with the. So I'll put a little asterisk or something like that. But yes, to your
Okay.
point, yes, I'll go back and recreate it. So we have it,
Well,
and I need to get them saved instead of saving them on my local computer. I need to get them saving up to the which is
yes, you do.
the
You
the whole
you
the whole point of it. Then that would be avoided. So
That's true. So yeah, Lou, why don't you? I mean, sometime let's set up some time for you to give me a ring, and I'll show you how to do that. You can map a Google Drive to your PC or Mac, and then when you save
okay,
the files there, they just automatically get uploaded, kind of like OneDrive or Box or Dropbox or whatever. So
okay, very good.
it would give you, I think, an easier option. And then if you accidentally delete something, they have a versioning. Google Drive has versioning, so you can go
Oh,
back to an old version.
yep,
So
that would be
you
excellent. Yep.
really need to get to that. Okay, well,
I,
I'm gonna go. Go ahead.
I move for 15 demerits against Brian and a dock of 2 days' pay.
That's right. I second that. Um, well, then we'll go ahead right into the director updates. So Grant, as many of you saw, I can't remember where all he posted it, but he has COVID. So, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but this is evidently the first time he's had COVID. So evidently he escaped it up until now, but he said it's kicking his butt. So, but he did send me updates for CocoFest, and I think I could have swore I saw. Yeah, Randy, you're here, so he mentioned you as well. So I'll give you an opportunity to give some color commentary um, when the appropriate time comes. But um, he said the Saturday night dinner is only going up a couple dollars to $45. This year we'll be going back to barbecue. Um, and he's looking for auction items for next year. Wanted to note that the club will pay for shipping to have it delivered to the fest, and to contact Grant Leedy if you need items shipped. I do know that he is planning to, so the Sunday, the Sunday presentations have been a little bit of a challenging affair. A lot of folks treat Sunday differently than they treat Saturday. I think folks prefer to have the presentations on Saturday as opposed to Sunday. And of course, some people can't be at the Sunday part of the show, or they leave right after noon. So he is going to focus presentations on Saturday. Um, and he'll start booking them in the January, February timeframe. So obviously, if folks are interested, and this is probably for the larger group listening in or whatnot, and I'll have him post on this as well. But he's going to be looking for presentations starting the January, February timeframe. So if you've got something that you're interested in, contact Grant for that, and it'll be. I think we have room for. I think we figured either 4 or 5, probably 4 presentations on Saturday, and still have time for the auction. So that'll be how we'll do that. A couple items. I think Randy, here's yours. I've been working with Randy on getting the registration website up by December 15th. So Randy, you have any other comments on that? Randy?
All right. Yeah, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Um yeah, that's an attainable goal. A few enhancements. We're gonna add the ability to edit your registration after you create one, where there were a lot of um instances where people wanted to add a guest or add a dinner or that sort of thing. So I'm building that in. Um and then having the ability to purchase a membership only. That was one of the goals we tried to pull off last year, but I'm going to finish up the code for that.
Okay.
And then getting everything configured with the hike on the dinners all set up. And if I can squeeze a few more, I have a few more ideas for enhancements, but those are the main ones I'm focusing on right now. So, and I guess that's it for that.
Okay. Sounds good. Any questions folks have on that? I mean, obviously I won't be able to get an answer to you right away, but I can take it back to Grant.
I know there was a few people that had mentioned the dinner last year as far as being like a diabetic option, and I don't know if the barbecue addresses that, where it's like maybe the meat only and then the sauce is on the side or something. But I don't know if that was if that's the if that's maybe that's how it's going to be served. In which case, then that isn't a moot point.
I don't know, but you make an excellent point. So I'll try to make sure. Let me write myself a note here to ask Grant about that. Diabetic. I know we've done vegan, vegetarian in the past. So I'm not sure. That was a couple venues. That was a venue ago. So I don't know what options are here at, what is it, Burgers R Us or whatever. What was the thing called that's at the
Yeah, something burger, wasn't it? Yeah.
so Awesome Burger,
Burger Claim.
Burger
Claim.
Burger Claim.
Burger Theory.
Oh, Theory. There it is.
Burger Theory. That's right. You're right. That's right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Oh, I guess I have a question about and I guess this is for all of us. It's the same venue, right? So
Correct.
we were talking about moving the presentation room,
Yes. Yes.
and
So the presentation room will be, so there is, for those who attended the fest last year, you go down that main hallway and if you walk straight, you would walk right into the elevators. But if you take just the slightest jog left, there's another hallway that continues on to the back of the building. So if you walk about 2/3 of the way towards the back of the building, there's a larger presentation room off to the right, and that's where we're gonna move the presentation, or the presentations and the auction there. The the room is bigger and it's set out. I know one of the things that was challenging on the room this year was that in order to, because of the way the projector was all set up, you had to walk right into the field of presentation to get into the room, right? So the 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 screen was right between the two doors. On the room that the other room, the room is set up to be, it's a long room that's not too deep, but then there's an inset area where it's designed for a projector screen and whatnot. So if you walk in, you actually walk in at the back of the room on one of the sides. So it's a nicer, it's a less intrusive way to get into the room. The downside, the reason we didn't choose the room this year, and so we'll have to figure out how to deal with this next year, is that um, the room is made out of, I think it was made out of what used to be an actual hotel room, one of the actual sleeping rooms. And the wall on the back of it, so completely opposite where the door is just glass. So it looks out into the foyer. It's a nice view. In fact, there's like a pad out there where there's some chairs and whatnot, if I remember correctly, and that's really nice. The downside is there's a lot of natural light that comes in that because of those big, wall of windows. So we got to figure out some way, and I don't remember there being a lot of light blocking blinds there. So we'll have to see what we can do about reducing the amount of light that comes in there for presentations, because it might make it difficult to see um, to see the projector. So we'll sort it out.
One of the uh challenges, I guess. Well, where were you thinking that we should put the auction items? Or would they be in that same room? And then we
Well,
would,
we could. I don't know that, because that room's not terrible. It's not incredibly bigger than the one that. I don't know that it's twice as big. I think you probably would want to put the auction materials some.
Number 2.
What? Oh, hi Tony. Tony, you might want to be on mute. Um, So I don't think the room is big enough to hold all of the people that want to be in the auction and the equipment. So we might still want to be using one of those side rooms for to put the auction items. What was the issue with that? Are you thinking because of?
well, I mean, we would, well, the way we worked it before was having a wireless camera, and obviously there's a range issue if it's too far away. I don't know. Is there a room close to that room where
There,
we can put the
there,
stuff? And
there might be. We can. We'll. I'll just put that as an item. So, um, auction room, because there might very well be. I remember there being a couple rooms there down on that down on that walk.
yeah,
But we weren't really, we didn't, I don't think we actually asked about a smaller room that was down that hallway. We were only, we were just, I think the reason we got told about that room is because as we were looking at the facility, and Tony was there, so he may remember differently, but I remember us thinking, oh, those rooms on the side there opposite the big, the big present or uh, room where all the exhibits were going to be, those are kind of small. Do you have a bigger room? And she's like, well, we've got this room down the hallway. And then she showed us this room, but then told us about the windows. But I don't think we ever asked her if there was a smaller room down there that we could leverage. So something for us to ask. We'll figure
okay.
it out.
I just,
Now I know.
yeah, I just want to prepare for the
Nope.
type of equipment, and make sure
Yeah.
everything's proper.
Well, and one of the things that I at the VCF Midwest earlier this fall, I talked to Jim Leonard, and I had a little bit of conversation with Michael, and they told me about, because they had done an auction room that was significantly separated from where the materials were. So they'd done their auction in the basement, and the materials had been up on, in the main foyer. And he said that he had the same issue you did. He said that the wireless, the range was too much of an issue. So they actually ran some actual Ethernet cabling between the two locations, or fiber or something. And so that may be an option for us. I think Michael and Jim and um, Jason Timmons, um, I think they seem rather um, conducive to providing us some amount of help for us, since it's quite a ways away from their show, and I think they use it as a little bit of maybe a test bed for stuff that they may want to do. So we may want to ask them if they can help us with a better way to to provide the video feed into the main room for the auction.
Cool.
Okay.
Could
Anything? Oh, go ahead.
one? Well, I was just gonna say what one other option might be. I guess it depends on how many auction items we have, but could the items could be on display on tables in that room, and then when the auction gets ready, maybe there's somehow maybe 15 minutes before the auction starts, we bring the tables out into the hallway, and they everybody's in the room, but the other folks are just outside the room,
Yeah,
doing the camera. Then we're literally like right there or something like that. But
correct.
anyway.
I don't know. I think these are all good ideas. It's a shame that Grant is under the weather because I think these are. I don't think he'd have an answer either, but we can definitely work. We've got some time to work with the venue. I know one of the things that we're trying to figure out is we need a better internet connection in the hotel so that we have more capability to stream, and there's folks who want to have their own connection to the internet and whatnot. So we're going to be talking. I know Grant's going to be talking to the venue about a an option that would provide us that, so we can talk about these other options as well. We'll just tell them what our issues are, and I I seem to remember the coordinator, the lady that works on setting up the space. They were very they were very willing to get creative on how to support us. They just needed to know what we needed. Okay. Um, I'm gonna stop and switch gears to John Mark. I don't know if you brought this up in the October discussion since we didn't have a quorum, but um, I we had a September club picnic, and I was hoping you could give maybe just a few minutes of recap on how that went.
Oh man, it was great. I showed up at the arcade. It was $25 a person, I think, at the arcade. They had wonderful vector games. The kinds of monitors that aren't a raster scan CRT, but they're a vector CRT, kind of like an oscilloscope in the XY mode where you can steer the beam up and down and right and left and in circles, and these were incredibly nice displays and bright, and I could play asteroids and Tempest and things like that. I really enjoyed the vector games. They had kicks, and I like kicks. They had Rampage, which I didn't enjoy at all, but they had a four persons could play, I think, Rampage at the same time. And I spent a lot more time at the arcade than I thought I would. I thought after about an hour I would be sick of it and I would want to leave, but I probably did leave after 2 hours. And we went for a walk. My wife and I went for a walk through the town and stuff. And then we came back and played some more. And then we went to pizza. Then we went to a candy store. And talk about kids in a candy store. Man, people just went crazy over this candy store. They had some retro candy. They had Pop Rocks and stuff like that. And anyway, and then we went back to the arcade and played some more. I've got some pictures of the event. And there was even an old Atari football game with the X's and the O's and a trackball on each side, and you would kill your hand trying to pound on this trackball to get your man to move across the screen fast enough to make a touchdown before he got tackled. It's really, really some neat old stuff. We had a great time.
Good.
How many people?
I think nine people. I think 9 people were at the restaurant and 7 people were at the arcade. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we spent quite a bit of money. I think we probably spent around $30 a person at the restaurant. So 30 times 9 is probably about how much money we spent.
Okay. Fair enough.
Kind of expensive, I think. I'm thinking next year we should do a more traditional picnic, or maybe a picnic and an outing. I don't know if the club should have to pay for an outing like that, but it was nice of the club to do that.
Okay, cool. Any questions folks have? Okay. Well, thanks, John Mark. So one item I wanted to give an update on, and Terry is on, so he may want to give additional context here as well. So in September, we talked about potentially having a virtual um, Cocoa event. And so I think in the conversation, Grant said he was going to take the idea and he was going to chat with the folks who run Cocoa Nation. And I believe there was a positive reception there to do something in the January timeframe that would be a virtual event. I think the idea is that we have, like I said earlier, we're probably not going to have presentations on Sunday, and so that does kind of constrain somewhat the number of presentations that we can hold. The other one is we have a number of folks who would love to give a presentation, but they are not able to join us physically in Carol Stream. Folks who are in other countries or may have physical inabilities to get to us would still have an opportunity to provide a presentation. But we do tend to focus on physical presentations or presentations that are in person for the show. So this virtual option would give us another opportunity to hear from folks. And so Terry, maybe you can provide some additional insight on how how Cocoa Nation is feeling about this and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think you pretty much covered everything we discussed. I did talk to Curtis, kind of as a sidebar. He's very much open to it. Everybody really enjoyed the last one we did. I think there was questions about the types of presentations and maybe how long they need to be, those kind of things. Because I think the last one we did, it ran, gosh, it was like 6 hours or 6 or 7 hours. So, I mean, if that's the group's pleasure, that's not an issue, but we would like to not, lose anybody by, getting off in the weeds too far on these presentations. But yeah, it was very positive, and I think Mark, you had something you wanted to add.
Yeah, I was just going to add that remember that was in 2020 when we didn't actually have a Cocoa Fest because of COVID. And so that was kind of like, hey, let's do a virtual thing. And yeah, it was like one of the longest ones we ever had on Cocoa Talk to Cocoa Nation. But, we didn't have a real event backing it up. So yeah, I think it'll be a little bit more manageable if we're going to have one, in a few months after. So
Yeah,
Well,
I
and
agree.
one of the things, I know I'd given some kind of thoughts on, what things might make sense. I know during the virtual fest that, we didn't that year we didn't have a physical fest. One of the things that was interesting and was the ability to show off kind of the environment in which folks are building some of their projects, right? Because that's not really something that you can take to the fest. So even though it's cool to bring your project and exhibit it at Cocoa Fest, it's sometimes finding, there's also interest in how did you get here? Like what was the environment that you used to build this? Or like I said, there might be some projects that people have built that are really one-off things that only exist in their own space, and they're not willing to take them out of their space, but would be happy to show them off. I know it's not a cocoa related item, but I know the last company I worked at, one of the plants actually had an Atari 800 XL still running their garage door system for their manufacturing plant. So, which that was just a couple years ago. So that's impressive. Even though it's not a cocoa, it's just impressive to have that at enterprise. So, something like that somebody made for their own home or whatnot. I did tell the group that if we want to actually brand it with the Cocoa Fest terminology, we need to make an official kind kind of motion on that. I think they were still kind of sorting out whether they want to do that or not. I know that we want to be. I know that Glenside's goal for sure is to be affiliated with this. Um, and one of the things I was thinking is, and I think Grant as well, is using this as an opportunity, like if you want to tease out or kind of show us the version of, kind of an incubation of your project that you're planning to take to the show in May. Um, this might be an opportunity to do like an early preview of it to show it at the virtual fest. The other one is I'm hoping that having something in January will get people started on their process, because I think the fest tends to sneak up on people, right? I mean, you wouldn't think it would. Everybody knows how the calendar works, but everybody gets busy and everything, and then spring starts, and all of a sudden, oh no, the fest is showing up. I should have been spending a little bit of time on my project. So um, I'd ask if you guys are seriously considering January as the time frame, which sounds fine to me. Um, it's November, and so I'm thinking next month we really need to be able to publicize. So I'm thinking we need to have answers and decisions probably this month so that we can publicize it in December and then be ready for it when it happens in January.
We're working on our officers meeting. Is going to be hopefully within the next 2 weeks. One other thing with, I don't know if I'm sure you've all seen, Mark O has been working on our Coco Tech show. So we're kind of thinking of branding things as the Coco Nation Network. So it wouldn't really be part, it wouldn't be actually part of the show. It would actually be part of, us and Glenside partnering up to do this. So that was
Okay.
kind of, if that sounds good to you guys, that was kind of, I think, the direction I was going to bring it to our officers with.
Okay.
Mark agrees. Looks like Mark agrees.
That a week or two ago, I said there's no reason to have this as a Glenside thing. And again, member of Glenside, and I'm one of the 5 board members of the Coco Nation as well as Terry is, and Grant Leedy, and Mark B, and Jason.
Okay.
So it's like we can just make it a separate event. We can just call it, virtual Coco event or whatever, and basically say it's a sponsored by the Glenside Color Computer Club and the Coco Nation.
Okay.
And
sounds good.
Provide the infrastructure, and I can get people scheduled. I'm already starting to do that with stuff for the new Coco Tech show, in case you haven't heard about it.
Mhm.
We got a Facebook. And it's just calling people and contacting them and saying, hey, what do you want to talk about, and scheduling stuff and putting it down. So
Well, we'd love to, I guess, push people into that mode and get people headed in that direction. As soon as you can let us know where to send them and whatnot, I'll put a post on Facebook and our website and so forth.
And the other thing too is that it's not a long-term thing. I mean, sponsorships, they come and go. So it's like Glenside and the Coco Nation are sponsoring this event. We don't have to in the future. So, we're not on the hook for anything. It's a one-off.
Okay.
But it might not be. That sounds
Okay.
reasonable?
I think it sounds fine to me. I mainly just want to make sure people have enough time to plan for it, and we've got plenty of folks who are interested in presenting be available to do so.
Do we need to put up a poll or something about what time in January? I was thinking probably the middle of the month or toward the end, but
We probably ought to, and find out when people would be interested in it. That sounds great.
okay. Well, you can put up a poll on, I guess, the TRS-80 Color Computer and the Glenside one. Yes.
Okay.
Because
Or-
they don't
yeah.
have to be members of Glenside, correct? If we're, we're looking at a lot of overseas people that definitely don't go to Coco Fest. We'd like to incorporate them too. And if is that okay? They don't need to be members, correct?
Oh, you don't even have to be a member to come to Coco Fest, right? So anybody
Right.
can come to Coco Fest. There's
Okay.
no
Just
no
wanted to make
restriction there.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't feel like gatekeeping tonight, so I think we're good.
I
Okay.
didn't. Brian Weasler sending the dogs after me or something. I don't know.
Oh, jeez.
Those Iowa.
Okay. I had a couple items in new business. So the first item in new business, I don't know if folks saw my note, but I need some help. This was sent out probably in the July-August timeframe. So at the show, our fest in the spring. Um, I know Tony and I had we had went through some of the material in 22 and looked, or no, 21. We had looked at some of the material, gotten it all together. Of that, there was a Gherkenberg controller and a ST251 MFM drive. That was the club's, and so we kept it. And so I know I thought Robert was on. Maybe I've lost him, but um, no, there you are, Exile in Paradise. So um, eh, there the drive that we attempted to get some of the information off the drive. Ultimately, Robert wasn't successful being able to get much off. I posted to the Classic Computer Talk website asking if there's anybody else that might want to take a crack at it. David Guesswine responded and said, "Hey, it's just a drive. I've got an MFM, kind of flux engine type of device that I can use." He designed. He uses it for mini computers primarily to get data off of the drives, but he was willing to give it a shot. So I mailed the drive to him in the spring, um, in in May, I believe. Um, and so he came back in July, and he was able to read all of the data off of the drive and create an image. So I have an image that we believe is complete and has error correction applied and everything, so it's all complete. But what I would really like to do is to take that image and somehow wrap it up into a runnable environment, like a CocoaPi environment or a MAME environment or a VCC environment or whatnot, and then maybe look through and see what, if somebody could kind of digest. It looks like it's an OS 9 image. Um, digest what's in there and kind of give a reading on what's there and what might be of interest to us. I know one of the topics tonight is potentially a BBS. I'm wondering, is there any BBS files on that old drive or not? And so I need somebody who's kind of technical and can take an image and uh, and maybe take it and get it bootable and figure out what's on it. So looking for volunteers, I guess. So if you know of anyone or you are able to help me out, that would be much appreciated, because I feel like David did a lot of work in getting it to us, and I hate to just let it sit as a big bucket of bits. I'd really like to see if there's anything we can pull off of this drive image.
David Ladd wouldn't have some capabilities there.
Well, if I don't get to him before you all do, if somebody could reach out to him and tell him I sure would love the help, that would be appreciated.
We'll try to get hold of him.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of which, John Mark had he had a couple topics that he wanted to bring up. So John Mark, the first topic in new business from you was from a couple months ago. You had mentioned possibility of a BBS, a GCC
Yes.
BBS. So maybe you could kind of comment on that.
Well, I talked to Eric Canales about this, and he's looked into it, and he's found some BBS software that would be very easy to implement, and I was thinking you could just have a Linux SSH or Telnet that you could log into, and maybe you could disable a lot of the functions that you don't want somebody to run. You don't necessarily want them to install software on a Linux computer and stuff. But anyway, it would allow you to maybe download either FTP or maybe Kermit or what was the other one, Z modem or Y modem or X modem. Download programs and stuff like that for the Coco. If you could have your ESP32 and you could connect to something like this over the internet, and you could load programs on your computer and run them. Anyway, Eric Canales looked at it and he said it would be real easy to do, but it would be a lot of work to maintain it or something. And so he wasn't really keen on doing it himself. But if somebody in the group, you know, in the club would want to take that on, he's got some ideas about how to do it, and he's convinced it would be an easy thing to do.
Okay.
I don't know too much, you know, what would it really be useful for, but if you could somehow download programs and you didn't need an SD card, all you needed was a direct connect to the internet through some kind of ESP32 or Raspberry Pi, and you could you know, download stuff and run it, or post messages on a BBS like we did in the old days.
So I think probably the two questions I have is the first one is, you know, how does the club membership feel about an officially sanctioned BBS, right? If there's, you know, if we feel like that's because there's, to John Mark's point, I think, you know, downloading files and whatnot, that's cool, although there's a number of other options there. But one of the key pieces of a BBS was, you know, the ability to have discussion areas and whatnot. I don't know whether it would be something that people are super excited about, but I know that there are a significant group of people who like to they frequent what's called a telnet BBS, which is what this would be, right? And a BBS that's accessible via a protocol like telnet or secure shell or whatever. And so there's definitely, you know, there's people who enjoy that. But discussion forums require some amount of moderation. There needs to be a system operator for a BBS, and that, you know, if I remember from back in the day, that, you know, just care and feeding of a BBS takes a certain amount of time. So I feel like there's two questions that we need to answer. One is there an appetite for the club to have one? Should we find the appropriate system operator? And then if we agree that that's true, that we would like to have one, then the second question obviously is who, you know, would be who is interested in operating the BBS, right? Because I think what I'm hearing is Eric doesn't mind setting it up, but he's not really interested in managing it day to day. And so Eric could definitely make sure it stays up and running, the technology, but as far as the actual environment, you know, making sure that the message forums and the files section and the whatever is kind of care and fed would be the responsibility of the system operator. So I think the first question I would like to get a little discussion on is how people feel about a official GCCC BBS.
Isn't it kind of part of the Constitution? Or has the web page kind of replaced the BBS in the Constitution?
I believe the web page has replaced it, so there's no necessity to have that, although there's a directorship. The BBS SysUp is a director. If we would have one, then they would be they would be one of our board of directors. Any
I think it's
other? Oh,
a
go
great
ahead.
idea.
I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, I think it sounds like a great idea.
Okay.
That would be very cool.
Okay. Any other?
Could be a single sysop, or could it be a shared? I don't know how that would work, but
Depends on the software.
yeah.
Most back in the day did have sub co-ops or sysops
Yeah.
to help out.
I would
Moderation.
say I can't imagine that we would want to limit it to one person, right? I just want to make sure that if we should move forward with this, we would need to make sure I don't think we would want to have a BBS and then have an unfilled system operator position, right? I think the existence of the BBS would only be supportable if there's somebody who can moderate and keep and care and feed it.
I have what about the possibility of having some legal issues with content, such as files that might not technically be open source?
Yep. I think
Whatnot.
that's definitely, I mean, that's a, you know, depending on who you ask and depending on how people read those various things, right? And depending on whether you're in the United States or not, there's definitely some the difference of opinion on whether files that aren't available through their, through the companies that originally created them. Whether having those files available via our BBS would be, you know, um, legal or not. I believe the technical answer is they're not, right? So the copyrights, if the file wasn't a shareware type file initially, if it was a commercial application and it was only to be installed or delivered if it was purchased, then we don't really have any legal standing there. So yeah, I would assume that the BBS sysop would need to manage that and ensure that we're not putting ourselves in any kind of legal liability by hosting files that have um, copyrights and can't be shared in that way.
I don't know how Lemons on the Commodore 64 works, but I know that the Apple site, Asimov, and Color Computer Archive, of course, everything's uploaded to a secure area, and then the person in charge okays them. So, there is gateway, things in place.
Yeah,
So
I mean, and I get that individuals can take that risk, but we would be taking that risk on as an organization. So there's
No,
there's a middle ground,
yeah,
and in the middle ground is stuff that has been specifically released.
right.
So Curtis Boyle's website for Coco Games, he has collected a large number of releases from the original authors who have granted permission for it to be redistributed.
Hmm.
So a Glenside BBS, if it adopted that same kind of policy to say, oh, hey, you're a Coco programmer and you want to put this up in the board for everybody, great, you put a release.
Mhm. No,
And
I think that's true. But in that case, then the license terms allow that, right, to be because he's gotten permission from the original authors to do that. Shareware was back in the day, it gave you that permission. You could put it on a BBS, but then somebody you were encouraged to buy it afterwards. I think to answer your question, Randy, I think what we were saying is we would not be able to put we wouldn't be able to accept any risk. So therefore, the only files that we would be allowed to put into the file section of the BBS would be files that we have that release. Either it was a free piece of software, or it was shareware back in the day, or somebody like Curtis has received a document or something that allows that particular software to now be shared on the internet. Everything else, I can't remember if it was Mark or if it was Terry, I forget who it was that mentioned. I think the way the BBS would have to operate is if somebody uploaded a document or sorry, a file to the BBS, it would be in a restricted, inaccessible space until the sysop could make sure that it has the proper um, that we are legally allowed to share it on the BBS, right? So we would not be able to take any. We could still have a BBS, but we would not be able to put any files on there that we can't legally host.
They could sorry, I can't talk. They could post a link to the archive, the Coco archive, if they wanted to say, let's have a gameplay night and it's this game that's already been done on the archive, does not need to be on our BBS at that point then. Because they've had to secure all those, I think, haven't they? The approvals.
I don't I couldn't I couldn't tell you whether uh, what the legal status of all the like what the mentality or philosophy is of the Color Computer Archive. I don't know.
I know some of it has had to be removed because some of the authors did not want their their software on there. So I think it is somewhat. I mean, again, the onus would be on archive, not on us.
Right. I mean, to be fair though, on all of this, putting files into a BBS is, certain files it would be, kind of neat data files and some things like that. And obviously some amount of like smaller, programs or something that's public domain or whatnot. Um, I think that, those would be kind of cool to have on the BBS, but a BBS could potentially be a rather difficult way to gain access to files. I think, most people are used to downloading the file from the Color Computer Archive onto their computer and then just dropping it on an SD card and putting it into their computer. So I would assume that if we had a BBS, you would put a certain small number of files into the file section for things that, maybe are utilities or something like that. But I don't know that it would make sense for us to try to replicate uh, the Color Computer Archive or something like that. It seems like a duplication of effort that won't yield a ton of benefit. I would assume that if we had a BBS, the thing that you wouldn't necessarily be able to replicate is that idea of a um, single line uh, message form, right? Where, because that's a little bit different than like today you have message forums, but they're online, right? They're web based, and the other one is they're all kind of asynchronous. Whereas I think the conversation went differently back in the day where when you were online, you were the only person that was on the BBS. And so you provided your comments to whatever was the thread was. And then when you logged off, the next person got on. I think it's a little bit different way of looking at uh, discussions. That might be a unique experience. But then again, Randy's comment is still valid there too. We need to make sure that putting those comments on doesn't open us up to, we wouldn't hate speech and, stuff. I mean, there's always legal implications in doing stuff like that. Um, but I don't know that I would say putting a big, huge file library on the BBS should be even not only not our goal, but I don't know that we should, I think we should actively discourage that.
John Mark, the software that Eric was talking about, is it modern software or is it older software that's been exposed via TCP/IP?
It's probably something newer that that does either SSH or Telnet. I think he's got a server rack in Chicago at like a clubhouse called the Pump Room. It's like a maker space. And I want to say he's got a server rack there and he could set something up on the server rack at the Pump Room, and but someone would have to maintain it, I guess.
The reason I ask is if it's older BBS software that has been, I guess, ported or whatever, my question is it being maintained? And therefore, we wouldn't have any issues with security and being able to update it as well. If it's older software that has just been given a new interface, such as the TCP/IP interface, rather than using the serial port that BBS is used to use, then it might be a dead code base that could have security implications, I guess, where we could get hacked pretty easy.
Good point.
I'm not sure. Jim, what about multi-node BBSs? They could talk at the same time.
That's true.
That's true. Remember those.
I do. But that's the thing. I think, part of what and maybe the question that I asked is too limiting, because I think maybe the question I asked is, do we want a BBS? But you're right. Like, if we want a BBS, like, what type of BBS do we want? Because you bring up a good point. Having some sort of newer software, that is, I mean, there's kind of, that's one way of doing the software. But the other one is, I'm thinking, even though I agree with you, there's risk involved in this. I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'm really all that interested in logging into a new application that purports to be a BBS. But I would love to, and I used to do this when I had more time. I love logging into an old BBS that's running on an old machine, right? So, you log in, you're logging in over Telnet. In fact, we used to, because this is kind of near to my heart. I wrote one of the I wrote probably the I don't know if it's the world's utility that everybody uses, but one of the programs that's available on most Linux distributions is a program called TCPSer, right? And if you look at who wrote TCPSer, it's me, right? I wrote that program. And the idea about it is that you can use their Linux machine to emulate a Hayes modem. So you can connect up your old computer to your PC or Raspberry Pi or whatever. And when you issue commands from your old BBS program, it thinks it's talking to a Hayes modem, and so it does all the stuff that a Hayes modem would do. The only thing is, instead of connecting to the phone line, it connects to the internet. And so we used to, back in the early 2000s, when that program was brand new, we used to do them on both sides. So we'd have a telnet, a terminal program on a PC or on a home computer. It would use TCP/SIR to dial the internet, and on the other hand, it would dial a IP address, which was a real BBS running on an old home computer hidden behind TCP/SIR. And so it was like an authentic experience. You got if you dialed in and they had their BBS set up to be 300 baud, you got your communications at 300 baud, and it was painful, but it was cool, right? So I mean, not that we set it up that way forever, but I'm like, hey, flip it to 300 baud, so I want to see how bad it is, and I'm like, oh, I can't believe we actually connected to BBS is this slow. But to me, that's really was fun. And so if we wanted to do that, was fine. But your point is valid. There's all kinds of variations on there. There was those EMM 386 or QEMM DOS machines that had multiple copies of, I don't know what the BBS software on the PC was. There's all that. So it seems
Wildcat.
Wildcat, yeah. So it seems to me like if we were going to do this, maybe there's a section of people that says, yeah, but only if it's an OS9 BBS or a BBS that
Well,
ran on a
that's what I was
Coco.
going to ask. Does anybody know if a Coco was ever the host of
Oh
a
yeah,
BBS?
Yes.
Tony Pedraza used to do that on his system.
So there's some software out there somewhere that is BBS host software
Yeah,
that ran on. I'm assuming a Coco 3.
yeah. I doubt you could have more than about 3 lines. I mean, you've only got like 3 serial ports most on most Cocos.
Ribs BBS.
Yeah, the local BBS, the local BBS in the club here in Sioux City. I have the discs. I've been trying to get them working, but the guy that ran our club here in Sioux City, he ran the BBS in the back of his business on 3 lines. Exactly is what he did, and it ran out on a Coco. He had 2 hard drives and a couple floppies in there, and it recorded and logged everything. And yep.
See, that would be really neat. I'd love that.
And they are real. I mean, I having knowing folks who ran them, it is really cool. And the use of it, you can remember, oh, I remember, and to do this, you had to press this button and you'd get the next page of text and then, whatever. I mean, it was a whole experience. Um, but again, I would probably reflect back, and I know Rich is laughing in the background there, and I'd love to get his comments as well as Salvador. But is that something that the club is interested in pursuing or not?
I have a quick question. I'm sorry to answer the question with another question.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I also have a comment. Um, I just heard somebody say that we could do 3 nodes with the Coco 3. And by the way, thanks for writing that TCP serve. I'm going to merge that on my Gen 2 machine when I get home. Do we think that that's possible to run that with aggregating those 3 serial ports on a Coco 3 and having like that telnet session, have like 3 telnet sessions like in a buffer, like in a ring? So you could have 3 people connect at the same time to the same Coco. So that's the question. The second thing is, the comment is I recommend that we have 2 people dedicated to this effort. And the reason is John, Mark, and I were kind of talking about this at the last meeting, is that it feels like we're losing a lot of membership in the Chicago area.
Mhm.
And that, I think we sometimes struggle with commitments where we say, hey, let's do something. And then people are like disappear, unfortunately. And I don't think it's on purpose. I think people got other commitments and things that they have to do. And it's, I'm in the same boat. Like I'm like across the country. So I'm not one who should be talking because I should be trying to commit and help, and maybe I can, right? I've got some Cocos here. I have lots of Linux stuff. Maybe I can help you guys do something or be a backup or something. But I think you should have more than one person dedicated to it. So like if somebody does disappear, it doesn't disappear with them. That's
Okay.
just my 2 bits.
Well, I can tell you that on the multi-line BBS, the one that used 3 lines, that would be that all 3 lines were usable on the Coco 3 at the same time. To your point, what you're describing is exactly what TCP Sir does. So it will allow you to have, so you'd have to have some sort of PC with 3 serial ports. But once you connected the 3 serial ports to the real Coco, TCP Sir will bundle them together. And so it'll give you, when you dial in, it would give you the next line that's open, right? So it would
That's
be
very exciting.
in a ring, right? So you would do those 3 lines.
Yeah.
Or
Bet you
however
could
many
get a busy signal. That
you
would
do.
be
You
cool.
you get a busy signal. You get you can either get a busy signal or you can pass a text file back that says,
Custom message.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can do a custom message. Um,
And
so
no answer message, and it's basically a Lantronix without the box.
right, right. That's true. That's what it is. Um,
That is so
so
exciting.
yeah, so that's definitely possible, and I think your comment is very valid. Having multiple people, I just it sounds like there's some interest. I know Terry sounds like interested. Um, Randy, it sounds like you would love to dial into one of those that was hosted on a Coco, and I think that'd be fair. I just wanna I want to see if there's anyone. I guess maybe we should see if there's anybody that thinks that may not be the right thing for the club to do.
Well, yeah, I
I
thought
think
that.
it's great.
No, I thought that one thing that could be done is if there's not a person that the club website could act as a coordinating point and provide some of the expertise and how to and be consulted about, oh, you want to learn about telnet BBS, great, here are some that people have offered. I mean, there's the telnet BBS list which Marco put in the chat as well.
Hmm?
But if the club doesn't actually want to run a BBS, you can still get the benefit of the experience and whatever by partnering up with somebody who does. And
Okay.
there's that whole Telnet BBS list. There's a C64 BBS list as well that has more than C64 BBSs on it.
Hmm.
And I had my BBS on that Telnet BBS guide thing until earlier this year when I took it down, because there's not many people who use BBSs today. So the first and main thing would be to get a commitment from the club members that that is the thing that they want to put some time into just as users, because a BBS without callers, you turn it off.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Any other
I
comments?
I th- I I think we should do it. I think it's pretty cool. I like seeing Glenside expand what it does, and not just do Cocoa Fests and do some other cool stuff.
Agreed. And I put in
I
the
agree.
chat, I used to run a huge board, and I can help people figure that out and what it can take and all that fun stuff. I've been there.
Okay.
And I
Well, I
know that
was
there are other people online, at least on the Discord, who have as well. So once it's decided, then that kind of interest can be gathered.
okay. Well, I think so. Here's what I'd propose. I don't know that I want to bring it to a vote tonight because I'm thinking there needs to be a little bit more prep work done on it. But I know there's a couple of us that are interested, a couple of folks that are interested. I have some interest in it as well. Um, but what I'm proposing is this. So we've got this virtual festival activity coming up in January, and we've got the fest coming up in May. And right now, part of the effort is finding out, um, how to set it up and whatnot. And I think there's probably more value in setting up an actual old system, like an actual Coco with the VBS software on it. But that takes a little bit of time to do that. So what I propose is that folks who are interested in helping out with just getting it up and running, like finding which VBS software is a good choice to do on an actual Coco, and helping to maybe test something. I've got a Coco here, and I've got an internet connection here that I can use with an ability to devote a port specifically for this Coco. And so what I'm proposing is that we take the month of December and some of January, and we find the right BBS software to run on a Coco. We load up that software on the Coco and we show it off at the virtual fest, and then have folks dial in and try it out. And then we tell people to try it out, and then to your point, Robert, we bring it up, like try it out, and then tell us whether you'd be willing to support this, and then we kind of transition it into a club activity if there's interest.
Yeah, run a pilot. Great.
Yes. So is anybody? I'm willing to kind of head that up if some other folks are willing to help me out in finding some software to try. So I
All
would
the
say,
I'm available all the time for that.
okay,
And I've got a whole list of BBS software for Cocos already in a directory on my drive.
okay.
So I put together that list and people can have.
I have a question on that. Do you have any with the source code? Because
Yes,
it would be awesome for us to be able to change.
that's that. Yeah, that's the
update
part
it
I'm most
to it.
interested
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I think I mean, John Mark, does that sound like something that would be interesting to try?
Oh yeah, sure,
Okay.
sure. I mean,
mean-
nothing ventured, nothing gained.
That's right. So I will do that, and that'll hopefully be something we can show off where we are progress wise in January.
in. So Jim, on the Discord, there is the Glenside category,
Yeah.
and there's a technical spot in it.
Yep.
Do you want to use that as at least a chat point?
Yep. That's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
I think the biggest reason to do it is because the Commodore folks have one, and that's not right.
There's
Okay.
actually
Okay.
somebody in the club that's made like a web browser for the Coco.
That's cool.
There we go.
Hewland has one called Web Wrangler.
Doing that.
OS 9 based.
Okay. Let's see. So I guess I have two additional items. I'm going to hold one of them. John Mark, I had a hardware project for 2024 Fest. That sounds like that might be a longer conversation, and I think it would be best if Grant is here. So I'm thinking we should hold that till December. The last one I have is it's coming up to the end of the year, and so the question is, what kind of interest is there for an end of the year roundtable virtual discussion demo time? We've had some in the past. Some years we've done it, some years we haven't. So open to suggestions. If we're going to do it, we probably need to figure it out in the next, month or so. I just thought I'd throw it out there in case folks are interested or not interested.
Or roll that into the January one.
And that's fair. That's fair. I'm okay with that too.
I think that makes a lot of sense because a lot of people have a lot of family obligations and stuff.
That's
for
fine.
the holidays.
I am perfectly okay with that answer. So,
Hey, Jim?
yeah.
I wasn't following the chat on YouTube very closely, but Curtis Boyle had a few things to say about BBSing and stuff. So backing up. I'll skip the one about the 6 hours of the virtual fest we did in 2020. Curtis says, I do have permission for dozens of games to be freely downloaded by the original authors, and the one's available on my website.
Okay.
He says, I think the archive, assuming it's the Color Computer archive, goes by the philosophy of post it until there's an author complaint. Mine is the philosophy of I have the author's explicit permission.
Right.
We had multi-user simultaneous BBSs back in the day. I ran one on 2 lines, my AlphaSoft one, for a bit until the phone bills got too much. And there were dozens of BBS host softwares, both DEC B and OS 9, for the Coco 1, 2, and 3. And Rainbow published a simple one called Rainboard in November of '83.
And co-BBS.
Ribs ran as part of the FidoNet back in the day.
Okay.
That's what I remember. AlphaSoft used to sell the COM4 board specifically for this, 4 6551s on one card. And he asked me to relay this message.
Good.
Messages.
Okay. Well, that sounds cool. Wow. Lots of options. Okay.
There is. And people know what they're doing.
Can I circle back on your other question?
Which one?
I heard back from David Ladd, and he said contact him if you would, Jim. He's interested in looking at that image.
Okay. I will do so. I want to be sensitive to folks' time. It's 8:30. I appreciate the time you guys have all devoted for our meeting. Is there any other new business? Okay, well, in that case, I will consider a motion to adjourn the November meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Terry Steege makes a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Mark Overalls are seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Motion carries. Well, I appreciate everybody joining. I know it takes some time away from your day. Hopefully it's been an interesting discussion, and I will hopefully see you all in December.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you guys. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks.